Hey, this is Glenn. Welcome to another episode of Difficult Questions. This one, do we need evil? This is on the back of Kanye and Hitler, but it's also, I was having a conversation over Thanksgiving with a young person who drug out all this historical reference of Hitler. And in the United States, that's the historical boogeyman, right? That he did evil things. And I remember when I was in high school or so, my big fascination at first was Charles Manson. And he's the evil and the cult leader, and he had people killed, and he's evil. What makes him do this? And I had this fascination with what evil was, and it was kind of exciting. And I remember my dad was just rolling his eyes. But he had a fascination with World War II. He was in Vietnam. People have a fascination with how people can commit atrocities and how people can dehumanize other people. And it's not just Hitler, right? But I think we have a cultural closeness to that, and it's a European nation, and it was a strength nation. My last name is Dunzweiler, so my parents definitely have a tie to Germany. So they're always had this idea of what Hitler is, and we have a lot of Jewish people in I would say very important places that continue to remind us of what happens when people become complacent and when people can become treated as less than human. But this has also happened in Europe. I'm also part Croatian, so during the fall of Yugoslavia, the Serbs and the Croats, and I won't get into the politics of that, but they were doing awful things to each other. I also, so I went from Charles Manson, who's this Charles Manson guy, to Hitler. It was my thing for a while. And then I was like, well, what about not white people? What did not white people do? And then I remember seeing the killing fields, and it got me into researching Cambodia and Pol Pot and the killing fields and having children kill adults by suffocating them with bags over their heads. I mean, it was just crazy. And then hearing about things Chairman Mao did. And these are evil things, right? But why do we have these? And so my dad would roll his eyes, and he would tell a story about almost being killed in Vietnam, in Saigon, which is now Ho Chi Minh City. He was in a hotel, and a bomb went off very close to that hotel. And so his idea of what is death and what is evil and what does evil mean to him really kind of became trivial, because he almost died by accident. And I've been hit by cars 4 times. And every time the intent wasn't to hit me, but they were distracted drivers, and they still really messed me up. So one of the things that I always say is, if that person was to use a gun, I at least could call them a criminal, and I could say that what they did was, if not, it was evil, it was bad. But because we live in such a car culture and cars need to be good, and we are very forgiving of that. So even when people hit me with cars, I can't be mad at them, which is also something that really trips me up. But what that means is I also look at what evil is to us and why we use it. And I don't really give weight to evil. So one of the things that made me laugh is when, of all people, Alex Jones was trying to demonize Hitler, because that's an easy way for you to say, yes, I'm an ally, and I agree with you that Hitler is bad and Hitler's evil. And Kanye said he did good things too. And I just laughed, because I remember early college, there was a display of Adolf Hitler's artworks before he became who he became. And they were demonizing them and condemning them. And it's that idea of separating the art from the person, because the artwork was placid. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It just was art. But there are sometimes I think we as a people, we say, you've done something so wrong that whatever else you've done, it goes away. And we have hard times with that because we have fans of artists like R. Kelly or Bill Cosby that have proven to do really hideous things, but their art is still something that we find to be attractive, and how we wrangle with that. And then how we deal with evil. I mean, sometimes it's the scarlet letter. You need to go away. You are just, we've erased you. You've done an evil thing, and therefore you are evil, or your intent was evil, or we don't understand it, or we can't support it. We don't agree with it. So therefore it is evil. You need to go away. And other times later, after, I would say, after there is some time to grieve, and I think it is a grieving thing, the joke is, oh, is this too soon? It's part of the grieving process is to be able to laugh at something, to get away from that power that it has over us. I think that's why comedy works. There was a quote that said, make them laugh or they'll kill you. Make the criticism funny or they'll kill you. And I think there's weight to that. But then we run into this thing that comedians have run into, where you have people that want to prove a point. They are grieving. They're not willing to laugh at something. And comedians, their whole job is to take the power and weight away from that evil and to laugh at it, to have us have a group laugh, or a group kind of release. I think that's what comedy does. I think that's what we do when we talk about evil. I know for a long time you couldn't have 9/11 jokes, and now we can kind of have 9/11 jokes depending on what they are and who they're in front of and what the agreement is. I know that I just listened to a comedian told a really awful joke about two Armenian men who were gay who committed suicide. Who their last social media post was a picture of their kiss as they jumped off of a cliff. And historically, Turkey refutes this, but there was an Armenian genocide with Turkey, and so these two men, I mean, it's sad. They weren't embraced by their culture. So they felt that the only way they could live was to not live, or to be together was to not live. And then this comedian said, well, that's two for the Turks. And it was just this really, that's a sad joke, but it's a joke. It's a way to look at an awful situation. I think we look at evil. So I always say also that the evil it excites us because our lives are boring. I always say if you're arguing about certain things, maybe not enough men are chasing you with machetes. And obviously that's an awful joke. I remember reading a book called The Harrowing of Mozambique, and it was literally trying to track why one person would be on one side and the other person would be on another side so quickly, and why they would change sides, and why they were willing to kill each other so quickly and so easily. And death by machete was the most common death. And if you were a man, you lost your life in your mid-30s by machete, not by heart attack, not by anything else, but by machete. So I came up with this joke. Well, we're arguing about this because not enough men are chasing you with machetes. And an evil joke, right? And in the right context, people don't know about Mozambique. They aren't from Mozambique. If they were, and I told someone from Mozambique, that might be offensive. So it's this real hard interplay. But at the same time, we need evil to excite us. And we need evil to point at something and say, that's bad, let's not do that. And I think that's the other component of evil, and why we need evil. We need to say, that's evil. And culturally, different things have changed about what is evil. And I think all of them, if you don't have empathy for humanity, so if you're killing people without reason that we understand, then it's evil. So you look at like a Jeffrey Dahmer or something. But at the same time, I look at some kind of wars that we're in and the things that we are doing, and I look at, well, just because we have a system and we're not directly causing someone's death, we are ordering someone to make a military action that will cause some death. Is that excusable? Is that not evil? What is evil? And for the other side, what we're doing is evil. And when you're in war, is war evil? Is war necessary? And it gets really murky. So I always try and back out as far as I possibly can to figure out what it is we're talking about and what it does for us. And I think it allows people to group up and decide what their boundaries are and what is allowed and what is not. And I think people get to decide how far removed they get to be from evil for it to be acceptable. One of the things I say is, if you're saying what Putin is doing about it to Ukraine is evil, which it arguably is, he's destroying targets that are civilian targets and he's just leveling Ukraine, that's bad. Is it evil? In World War II, we firebombed Japan. Now we come up with a whole bunch of reasons, but we set cities on fire just to decimate the city. And in this country, we're built on stealing land from Native Americans. So you could argue that if you own land and you are not indigenous of this country, you are participating in that evil. Now, people hate that, especially realtors. They hate that because that takes away the modern business, the modern society. How far away does it have to be before it's evil? And how close does it need to be to us? And what defines evil? And what does that do for us? When we talk about Hitler and Hitler being evil, why are we doing that? What does that do for us? Does it say, is an extra check? Do you say Hitler's bad? If you don't say Hitler's bad, you're not one of me. Hitler's bad, Hitler's bad, Hitler's bad. Well, where does that get us? What does that do? Are you going to say Pol Pot's bad? Are you going to say that realtors are bad for selling land that we stole from Native Americans? Is that the game we're going to play? So what do you think? Why do we need evil in our lives? Do we need evil in our lives? Do we need people to do things that keep us thinking about and hyped up about things not to do? Or should it all just be roses and light, and then is life boring? I don't know. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Thanks.